People argue that more gun control is important to limiting violence. However, it's better to not limit gun use and allow citizens to bear arms to protect themselves and not leave themselves vulnerable to criminals. The Second Amendment gives Americans the right to bear arms. In fact, according to the National Archives, the Second Amendment reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." Infringed, that means the government should not take away this right because it's indeed infringing on our rights. Using guns is a major part of many Americans' lives, whether through hunting, hobby, or for protection. Taking that away would take away many things from citizens. In fact, in a recent release by the White House detailing President Obama's plan for modifying gun control, entitled "The Time Is Now," the first point of the file stated most gun owners buy their guns legally and use them safely, whether for self-defense, hunting, or sport shooting. Also, the Legal Information Institute of Cornell University also points out various cases in which the courts interpreted the Second Amendment in favor of protecting the right to bear arms. This just proves that normal citizens are using their guns for safe recreational use and using them in proper ways how they've been allowed to for many centuries. It also shows that the pattern of criminals will not be affected by stricter gun control. In fact, it also only hurt legal citizens in their use of safe gun practices. Criminals will still be criminals and do illegal things. Limiting gun use does not stop someone who has no legal conscience. Criminals will be criminals, and leaving our law-abiding citizens at a disadvantage to criminals just seems un-American. Just look at drugs and other weapons that are legal, but criminals still have access to them. Making stricter regulations does not stop criminals from attempting to obtain illegal goods. Guns are a livelihood and hobby of some Americans, and limiting them could cause law-abiding citizens to become lawbreakers. Just look at prohibition. Alcohol is a very American thing, and just like hunting, hobby, and protection through guns, it's also very American. And look how prohibition worked. Allowing citizens to maintain the right to bear arms in the end can come down to the fact it protects citizens. However, whether for protection or another source, it seems that people seem to forget the cause behind violence is not in fact the gun, it's just an object, but it's the people behind the weapons. People choose how guns are going to be used. A gun is just an object until it's in the hands of someone. There it can become a weapon of ill intent or a form of protection. A criminal is going to gain access to something if they really desire, as criminals for centuries have. So they will make guns weapons of violence, but will stricter gun control, will that limit that? Or will it only allow innocent people to not be allowed to use guns as weapons of protection? The Legal Information Institute of Cornell University also points out that justices often interpret the Second Amendment to allow the right to bear arms to rightful citizens, but they also interpret that the amendment should allow regulation of firearms for criminals or the mentally ill individuals. With this in mind, regulating against criminals and those not fit to use weapons is logical, but if limiting firearms to law-abiding citizens and putting them at a disadvantage to protect themselves, that seems unfair. While it's true that guns can lead to deaths of people, it's obvious that gun is just an inanimate object, and it can be used as a form of protection or weapon of ill intent. The right to bear arms is an American right. It's a right promised to us in the Second Amendment of our Constitution. Criminals may use guns in illegal ways, but it's better to give citizens an avenue to protect themselves than to leave them more vulnerable to criminals who will not be stopped by laws because they have no legal conscience. Therefore, there shouldn't be stricter gun control, and we should allow our citizens to use their guns in the ways that the Second Amendment has given them rights for centuries, instead of leaving them vulnerable to criminals.